Hello, I'm Noel. This is Antonia from Boxtail Soup Theatre Company. This is another Boxtail Scoop. One of my trees has already fallen over.
Oh yes, everything's a bit precarious on the table, unfortunately, today.
So we thought we would, having talked about the puppets quite a bit and all of the puppet heads and bodies making and stuff, which is obviously we're still getting on with. We thought we would talk today though about the set and how we make it and how we get from the kind of initial ideas to the finished product.
So you've already seen some of the drawings for Hansel and Gretel. I think the first vlog that we did after we'd finished all the Alice stuff was basically, it ended with the drawings for this particular set. But just to sort of put things into context, we thought we would show you the two of the most relevant drawings, really, I suppose. This is the kind of concept idea for what the show would look like at the beginning when the audience first come in. This is what it might look like when it turns into a gingerbread cottage. So that would be that tree there, folded out, and then this is what it would look like if it was Hansel and Gretel's house. So we have kind of two key pieces of set that move around,
Yes, I think we decided based on that although there would be other decorative pieces of set, as it were, and we might use them as we often do, to define a shape or to make a particular, change the stage up a little bit. There might be a few kind of trees and things in the background, that there would be two key pieces of set, which was Hansel and Gretel's house and then the gingerbread cottage.
Which both start as trees on the other side and then turn into those things. So for the gingerbread cottage, when I had done this drawing, in order to explain to you what I meant, I made a very crude paper model trying to explain to Noel that it would start as a tree like this, then the first reveal of the cottage would be kind of half a door that you'd see through the trees and this cake lamp, and then you would open the tree to reveal the whole door, and then you would open the door to reveal the whole of the inside of the cottage. So that would be how you'd then gone in to the cottage. And then for the Hansel and Gretel's house, it wasn't quite so complicated, as the original idea was basically you'd sort of turn the tree around, and on the other side, the flip side of the tree, would be the separate bit that would be Hansel and Gretel's cottage.
I think the main thing was that we wanted to get the sense from both that they were kind of part of the forest and that they were part of the woods. So with Hansel and Gretel's house, even though it's really just a fairly simple reveal, we still wanted to get that sense that, you know, they live amongst the trees or they live on the edge of the forest. So their house kind of comes out of the trees and appears there amongst them, and is kind of in keeping with the rest of the forest and the trees around it. And then with the gingerbread cottage, the key idea we wanted to get was the idea that you sort of saw it peeking through the trees. So it was that sense of like just seeing it in the distance, then gradually having it revealed, and then being able to open the door. And to be able to do that all in one piece of set, that was the plan.
So you then went into what you then always do nowadays, which is to make a pizza box model.
Yeah, I think so. As we've gotten more ambitious with our sets, then it's become more and more important to plan more carefully and to make sure that we know exactly what we're making, and that we've tried it out, that we've made a little model of it, that we know what it all looks like, we know how it's all going to work before we start building the real thing. So after you've sort of made that paper model and given us a sense of what it's going to look like and how it works in 3 dimensions, then basically I just start making little cardboard cutouts and trying to get a sense of how the things fit together, and how in the first instance, I'm not making anything complicated or making anything fancy. It's just a really, really quick cutout to get a feel for how they should work together and how they should look. And
I think this was one of the first ones, wasn't it? Where this is the gingerbread cottage, and you were trying to work out, I think, where it might need to fold, and then how that would hide, how that would be concealed behind that tree.
Exactly. Yeah. So just getting a sense of like how big you could make the door, how wide it could be, and where you'd need to fold it to conceal it.
And then you did a similar sort of thing here, didn't you, with the Hansel and Gretel's house, was how could you conceal this behind this to begin with? How wide could the bottom be? Where would the roof have to be? and that sort of thing. That
Yep.
was that, wasn't it?
Yep,
That
yep.
was that one. And then you tried to scale that up. That was later though. We can bring that out later because that's quite funny.
Yeah, so the next thing was to work out the kind of mechanical operation of it. So we knew that initially we wanted it to be a sort of a tree that faced the audience, but the problem was because we wanted to make stuff out of foam board. Again, you know, because we've used foam board for a lot of set for the last few shows, it's really light, it's quite strong, it's easy to cut and easy to build with. Once it's covered with papier-mâché, you know, it becomes pretty durable.
It's really transportable as well.
Yeah, so it's been a really useful material.
Portable, that's the one I was actually
Transportable.
happy, whatever.
But we knew that if we wanted it to start like that, and you've built it out of foam board, the problem with that is that it will only bend one way. So once you've bent it all the way flat, because the foam board's a little bit thicker, it kind of meets there, and that's as far as it will go. So we couldn't then have kind of turned it the other way. So ideally, what we needed from those pieces of set was for every one of those leaves, if you like, to be able to travel all the way around to go 360 degrees.
So you came up with the ingenious idea of putting it round a pole so that everything can then turn, basically. So it could start like that. The gingerbread cottage would start with a tree facing, and then you would have the door. That's right, isn't it, there?
Yes, yeah, I stuck
the
these on back to front, but yeah.
A lamp poking out. Then as in my paper model, that would then
reveal like that.
turn to reveal that, and then you could go in via the door, then to the interior of the cottage, and equally you could retreat.
Yeah, and you can just keep turning them, you know, because they're all working.
So they'll all spin the whole full 360 degrees. It was quite funny actually, because when Noel made this, it was really cool, but he still had to really explain to me exactly the fact that it could still all spin around this one pole. But you know, I think you're also going to make sure, aren't you, that the ones that are on the outer edge of the door are slightly not quite as tall. They don't hit the floor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that they can fold out and they travel with a little bit of clearance.
That's it.
Over the floor. Yeah, so
they don't get stuck. So that was that, and then we had to work out. Having done this, we decided that because this worked so well, in fact, we'd use it for both the trees, didn't we?
Yeah, and the other thing I quite like about it is it has a kind of book-like feel to it. You know, it's something quite nice about that opening of a book, that feeling of revealing the stuff in that way.
The other thing I think that's really important at that point, when we were discussing how we could do that, and you had come up with that idea, what I liked the most about it is the fact that the transition then, each of the transitions would happen smoothly.
Yes.
You wouldn't be having to pick up the whole of this tree and turn it physically round.
Yeah, which is also really important, isn't it? Just to make it smooth as possible. And
because an audience is going to get tired. They'll be happy to watch one slightly awkward scene change that takes a moment, as long as you do it beautifully. But after that, they really wanted to see things happening nice and smoothly. So that really appealed to me.
Then the next major discussion, once I was kind of happy that worked mechanically, and I'm kind of convinced that I can physically do it. I can build it somehow, and I can see how that would work. The next thing really is to decide exactly how big it's going to be, what kind of size we need it to be, and just figure that out. You know, figure it out based on the puppets that we've got. Figure it out based on
the space that we're going to be in.
Yeah, how we want it to look. How the feel of the whole thing. So the next model to make is a scale model. The reason I say, you know, once we're happy with all the mechanical stuff, is there's no need really to build all of that again.
I think if you have a luxury of lots of time and you know, then you would do that. I mean, certainly in the major theatres they'll build a full beautiful scale model, but
the important thing for us here was to make sure that, okay, if that works, that's great. Exactly how big does it need to be now, and how can we have a look at that?
And when we were working out, how big that it needed to be, you were holding up bits of foam board, weren't you, and sort of saying, right, well, if the door was this big to the cottage, how would that look? And you know, we've had various discussions where we're like, that's just too small. It looks too small given that we're all adults playing children as well. It needs to be in proportion to us. And then there was one that was long and thin, which looked slightly silly.
Yeah, you can't have that door look too narrow or look too short or any of that stuff. And as we said before, we often mark it out on the wall with masking tape in the first instance, just so that you can stand next to it and get a sense of, whether it feels like that's definitely too short,
Exactly.
or when you stand next to that, it looks tiny.
And we had a discussion as well about whether we would need the size of things. Does it matter in terms of when we're taking the stuff to the theatre, how we do that? Does it have to be, do we want the set to be tourable in the future? Do we need to flat pack it down like we would do with obviously Little Grim Tales and Great Grim Tales, or pack down deliberately because we know they're going to be a touring show? The long and short of that discussion, which was lengthy to be fair, was that we decided, no, doesn't have to tour, it's going to be in the same venue for a substantial amount of time. If it goes out again in the future, which we hope it will, it's likely to be in the same venue for a substantial amount of time again. If it did need to tour, we could then fix that at a later date.
Yeah.
So we've given ourselves the luxury of allowing bigger pieces of set.
And it is a luxury because that adds a whole other level of complexity, which we've dealt with it for most other shows, knowing that even if you build something big, it's got to break down into very small transportable pieces. So yeah, we decided that for this we wouldn't have it break down too much, and that we'd give ourselves.
And nonetheless,
that luxury.
we've still tried to be
Well,
careful.
it's still compact.
Yeah.
It's still easy to move around. So yeah, we built these scale models. We made a couple of little cardboard people here who are to scale height wise.
I think that the Knoll one, this is the Knoll one, this is the me one. I think the Knoll one has a slightly large head. I don't know.
Just to scale height wise, not to scale in many other dimensions, maybe width wise. So that gives us an idea of what it will look like next to us on stage. So based on that and based on our measurements on the wall, we decided, okay, we want the trees to be 2 meters.
Yes.
So that's what we went for the trees. And then once you've got that measurement, you can kind of figure the rest of it out. I knew how wide, what the maximum width I could make something because of the size of the larger sheets of foam board we had were.
And
So
we
again-
could have made them wider, to be fair. We've done that in the past. We've added extra bits on, but actually,
Yeah, I mean, the trees definitely could have been wider.
I don't think they would have looked right though.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. So you know what your outside limitation is, but then also we want them to look right.
And then we had for Hansel and Gretel's house. I think this was the first to scale house that you had cut out.
Yeah.
And we both agreed, because that fitted nicely within the tree, but we both agreed that in fact the base of this house is too narrow. I mean, we think it looks slightly like an arrow anyway, but we quite like that about it. But that is just it's gone too far.
Yeah, it was just too skinny. It looked a little bit too weird. So we've cheated that slightly. So this one sits slightly outside the trunk of the tree. So it was figuring all those little things out, really, was what this is about. And the great thing about doing it like this is, if you make it all to scale, and this was all, I measured this all accurately, so this is all exactly to scale, I can then just take those measurements, scale them up, and that will give me everything I need to draw it out on the foam board and to quickly be able to transfer that over, which makes it much quicker to draw it out and much quicker to start cutting.
It's safer as well. You're much less likely to make mistakes or suddenly decide, cut something out and go, oh my goodness, what have we done? We could easily have made this mistake in the actual foam board, and that would have
Exactly,
been a real pain, because it would have been such a waste.
Yeah.
Or we would have had to have figured out how to add bits onto it or whatever. So it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think what we're going to do now then is show you the pieces of set, the actual pieces of set that Noel has cut out, which I'm so excited about them already. I mean, and they're only foam board with bits of tape stuck on, but even now it kind of gives you a sense of what
You
it's
start
going
to
to be
see
like.
how it's going to be. Yeah.
And then obviously these are just the two main trees. There are, as we said, going to be other ones in the background, and some of the ones at the back will probably be taller than these two, I think, just to give that sense of height. Some of them will be smaller, so that you've got that nice variety as you would get in a real forest.
So yeah, we'll have a quick look at those now. Okay, so we're just going to have a quick look at the proper size pieces of set. So these are the actual pieces of set that we're going to use. They'll be covered with papier-mâché, and then they'll be decorated and painted and so on and so on. This is just one of the big tree pieces we're going to have. So you can see its counterpart here, and then they'll be connected buy a piece of dowel, buy a stick in the middle, and they'll have their little hinge pieces on so they can rotate around that. And then obviously these, you can just see where the different pieces of foam board have been connected together. This is 10mm foam board, so it's quite thick, which is nice, quite strong. We should also, actually worth mentioning that all of this foam board, we got it, quite cheap from a very helpful company. It was all damaged stock, so we were very happy to be able to take it and do something useful
To rescue it.
Exactly, yeah.
Do you want to show the house first,
yeah.
I guess? So this is
Should we
our
hold on to all
Arrow
those bits?
house. So this will be Hansel and Gretel's house. Obviously, it'll have windows cut out of it to make it, and it probably won't go completely flat, will it? It'll probably be just slightly bent like that. It's going to have an opening window, maybe even something that flaps up. We're going to,
Yeah,
things
so
that
have a
hang
little bit
off
of
it.
a little bit of interest and
yeah.
intrigue, and a few little tricks built in. And obviously, it's sized so that it will be completely concealed then when it folds behind one of the trees.
I'm also going to make some little foam board tree trunk stools that they can sit on in their house. And then this is the door to the cottage.
Yeah, this will be the front door to the
gingerbread
gingerbread
cottage.
house.
So it will be concealed behind the tree, and then the first thing that will happen, I think, is probably that the cake lamp will fold out.
Yeah, so this will be like a candy cane stripe, red and white.
With the cake lamp on it.
Yeah.
And then the door will fold out like that.
Yeah.
And you've put magnets in there?
Yeah, so this is secured by a lot of magnets down there, so that when it gets into position, the magnets hold it so that it won't just bend back again. It should just snap into position. So that works pretty nicely.
We decided that was just about the right sort of size, that, even though we'd have to technically bend slightly to go in, it's sort of a magical.
Yeah, it doesn't want to look like a
cottage.
full-size door,
No.
but again, you don't want to have it be too tiny. So yeah, that's.
And obviously then there's
seems like
another
right
side
size.
to that door as well, and another tree that's cut out over there.
So there we go.
So that's the set as it is so far. Very excited there'll be lots of papier-mâché to do next with that, and also adding the hinges on so that or the loops, so that it can then fit around the dowel pole. Yeah. But we'll get on to that next week, I would think. But thank you ever so much again for watching, and hello to our new subscribers. If you did enjoy it, please do subscribe, comment, like, all of those sorts of things. That would be lovely, and we'll see you next time.